Welcome to This Week in Indies. You know, we've all heard or have stories of the creative process starting when we were very young. However, in the pursuit of being an independent artist, how do we manage in a business that requires creative collaboration? Is it something you're born with? Is it something you can attain to? Is it a skill you can learn? Is the marker for true independence in the actual creating? Or is there a roadmap that marks a more practical experience to get you fully independent? We'll discuss all of this with our roundtable discussion panel. Plus, C.L. Cannon will be along with another great collection of indie books if you're a fan of Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Then we will be visited by a guest with a special sneak preview of what's to come. So, grab a cup of coffee, get ready to chat with us, sit back and relax, and enjoy another great episode of This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Welcome to This Week in Indies. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case may be. Welcome to the show. We're so glad you're here. I know for us in America, it's a kind of a holiday weekend, but hopefully, looks like the chat's already buzzing. So I'm excited to have you all here. So thank you so much for being here. Smash that like button, subscribe. You know all the things and the tools and the whatchamacallits. And welcome to the show. We've got a good show today. I have half of my panel here, but that's okay. I'm happy to have the two people I have, and hopefully Daniel will jump in when he can get his computer all squared away. Heather couldn't join us this morning, but that's all right. I think the three of us can manage. So that being said, why don't we have both of you introduce yourselves, and then we'll get to talking. So Sean, start us off.
S.M. Hillman professionally, Sean Hillman, I'm a speculative fiction writer at the wickedboys.com. I'll get the finger thing right eventually.
You did that pretty good.
Independence is the only, I feel like it's going to be the primary way of going forward for my career. So, nice. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Karina.
Hello, everyone. For those that don't know me, I am Karina Ganter, CEO of Author Assist. I help authors with their publishing, marketing, promotion, narrations, book trailers, and everything in between. I'm also a best-selling author and award-winning author with 14 fiction books. I'm independent. I'm also with a hybrid press, and really excited to talk about this week's topic.
Awesome. I'm going to do this real quickly, just for my own personal, because you all should be front and center, not me. We've got some good chats going here. Madilynn says, "Good morning, you amazing people. I'm going to be in and out of streams." Sean was asking her, how is SoonerCon? And she says, it's going great. It is going great for her. I saw her in a Go to Indie Now t-shirt. That was really cool. AF Stewart's here. Vanessa's here. It's okay. I think everybody's moving a little slow this morning, Vanessa, so it's all good. I know I am. So, Jessica's here. Hi, Jessica. Nice to see you. Welcome to the show. And send your stars and hosts of producers and show them how much you appreciate us by sending us stars and all that fun stuff. I do have a prize package, which I will unveil here in a couple weeks. So if you still got time to get involved. So we've got plenty of shows going on this week. So please, do all that and get yourself some nice swag. Anyway, all right. Daniel's here, but it looks like he's having trouble connecting. So we'll wait till he can get fully connected there. But let's start the conversation because This is very interesting to me because for me, growing up, I always felt like I was truly independent from probably the womb. I was I was I ran before I walked as a child, so I was always running away, and I did a lot of. There's Daniel. Let's bring Daniel in. Hi, Daniel.
Sorry. How are
No
you guys?
worries. No
Good.
worries.
Doing good.
Are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right, so let's have you introduce yourself as you drink coffee.
It was a coffee type of morning. My name is Dan Myers. I wrote a fantasy novel during COVID called Alejandro Rising, and I live in Minnesota with my wife, now 3 kids, one of their husbands, and my 2 mother-in-laws. So yeah, life is fun. Needed something to escape.
Well, we're glad that you chose us to do that. It sounds harrowing. Probably the stuff of novels, right, Daniel?
Yeah, that's what I should be writing about. But
So I was saying, I've had the spirit from the beginning, right? I used to run away as a kid. I ran away quite a bit as a kid. I actually tried to go to war to get out. I tried to apply for Desert Storm, and I've done all kinds of things to just get out of the house, get away, be independent. So I contend that there is something inherent inside of you that you're born with to be an independent spirit. But over the years, I've also learned and seen people who've grown into that. So I'm curious what your perspectives are, all of you, your perspectives are, and what you feel like. Do you feel like it's something you're born with? Do you feel like you can learn it? Is it a skill that you can learn? Is it something that you can attain to? I mean, where do you all stand on that aspect of it?
I think that it does come in multiple flavors, right? That sort of independence you have as a child. I was like, it's kind of the same way. And I was much more willing to try weird things than my brother or sister were. And, they both took a longer time getting through their undergraduate degrees than I did. I was like, I'm going to be in and out 4 years. Boom, I'm going to be done. And it was, so I always been a bit of an outsider. And I think that's where it began for me. But even so, that came with the idea that I would eventually rise to the level of being published by the big publishers, right? If we're strictly talking about my writing, or if we're talking about gaming, I'd eventually write for or design for the big companies. And over the years, I think one of the things that drew me to the idea of being a freelancer and doing things independently was how many people sort of sneer at the idea of being a freelancer, sneer at the idea of doing it independently. And to some degree, I can understand, at least as far as books in the days of vanity presses, and that people outside of the hamster wheel of writing don't really understand what goes on in the process of writing. And of course, I didn't at first either. And then of course I learned. So as I've gotten older, I realized that I work better in a independent self-publishing type of environment.
I think for me, going personal now, it started off getting out of my mum's house as soon as I could. So as soon as 16, that was it. I was out. Left school, didn't go to college, didn't do sixth form, left school working so that I could afford to pay my rent in this house that I was staying in. That's where the independence started. And then went back to college and did a year in college. And one of the reports from the a very similar report from a lot of the tutors said that she works great on her own, but she has to learn how to work in a team. So eventually, you learn how to work in a team. You need to, especially if you have a business. It took 10 years of bending over backwards, burning the candle at both ends until I was dead on my feet, trying to run the business on my own. I had to then step back and say, I can't do this anymore by myself. And that's where the independence then stopped.
I grew up with a family of 12 kids, and so I was always used to having somebody to do stuff with. So I've got an accounting degree, so I'm actually, of all the people I know on Go Indie Now or whatever, I think probably the least comfortable with all the independence stuff. However, I realized a while ago that I would probably never be able to get published through a standard publisher just because my book was too long. It wasn't the boilerplate. And then I started reaching out, and, we say we're independent, but I feel like I get a lot of support from, other people in the Go Indie Now sphere, and also people I've met online and friends and family and everything else for my beta reading. But I think the independent route has been a lot more enriching, simply because we get to hire the editors, and we get to make decisions about cover and everything else. And sometimes they're poor decisions, but they're ours. So I'm really enjoying it. I don't have anything else to compare it to, but that's kind of my journey.
Is that the barometer though? Is it you're no longer independent if you have a traditional contract or a traditional loan? Because I'm not so sure I feel like that's the case.
That's not. We all know, we've talked about it before, when you have a traditional contract with a publisher, you're still doing all the work. It is you that needs to market and promote that book. And if you don't do it, you won't get those sales. You won't get those reviews. You're in charge. So you are still independent. It is up to you to get your book out there if you want to make any money. Yes, you've got that big contract with the publisher, but that don't mean shit nowadays. Sorry, but
I mean, yeah, you don't get to make as many decisions, obviously, but I'm not so sure in this day and age that I would fight with an editor about decisions that they make towards what I do. So in some respects, there's still that aspect of it, right? So you're not in total control as an independent.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I think that though that there's a difference between collaboration with an editor or a book cover artist or a beta reader. Like you said, we're in charge of that. Or whoever said that we're in charge of that. I'm sorry. But that ability to collaborate with your peers isn't something, as far as I know, that the mainstream traditional author often gets to do, or they have to reach a certain level of success before those collaborations become legitimized. Whereas for the independents, I feel like it just means that you're navigating your ship, and occasionally you pull into a different port to get some advice from the other captains, right? If that makes sense.
I love that. Yeah, that makes total sense. You're independent because you're the one finding that editor. You're the one finding that cover designer. That's on you. Yes, I agree, Joe. You don't argue much with your editor. They always know best. They are worth their weight in gold. I put my hand up to that. But it's you who finds that editor, so it's on you if it doesn't work out. And again, a part of being an independent author, it's your choices and your mistakes.
Mm. And Anita makes a good point here, and any lines between trad and indie are blurring more and more as authors go hybrid. So yeah, I mean, I know a specific traditional author who will never be indie in terms, because they did that to start with, and then they got a contract with a medium sized publisher, not big five, but they a big enough publisher where they don't have to worry about all the other things that they have to worry that we worry about on a daily basis, and maybe even minute by minute and hour by hour. But the one thing that they did maintain control of, because they felt like the traditional marketplace wasn't providing what they needed for it, was the ebook market, and they decided to just negotiate with the publisher to let him have control of the ebook market. And so, because he felt like that's the one area the traditional publishing got wrong. And so, and in doing that, he's been very successful because he's been able to navigate around, you know, using the traditional publishing model, and then, you know, giving his own independence to that aspect of it. I mean, he doesn't do much online, you know, stuff, because he has a traditional publisher who has a, you know, has you know, a PR department behind him and all that. So, but it's still his, and I think he feels like that's part of it. And I think in saying that, I kind of, that's the kind of idea, right? It's inherent inside of you, right? It's something that just you either you're burying or you're pursuing, right? And uh, I I just don't know many people who I feel like don't have some kind of independent streak in them. You know, don't have some kind of need to feel like they're in control of something, right? And so I'm kind of curious, is there times in your life where you've buried your independence for certain aspects, and what did that make you feel like?
Yeah, I would say probably work is the biggest experience for me. Is I work in industries that are very different culturally than I would normally get along with. So a lot of times, people will from work will meet me outside of work, and they're like, "Wow, you're completely different outside of work." And I'm like, "Yep," because I can't behave the way I would normally behave at work and keep my job. Um, so it's because I'm tend to be very loud and boisterous and gregarious, and it's in the accounting field. There's a reason there's a lot of accounting jokes like, how do you tell an accountant likes you? Because he looks at your shoes when he's talking to you instead of his own. Those are valid criticisms of the accounting profession. I'd say more so 20 years ago than today, but there's still vestiges of that exist.
This time last year, my life was totally different, and I wasn't an independent. I relied on someone for everything. Now I am totally independent. It's up to me. I don't work, the bills don't get paid. Bills don't get paid, I don't get food. The house is mine. I do what I want when I want, go out when I want, and work when I want. This is total independence for me. However, work-wise, it's done a shift. As I said earlier, I've gone from trying to do everything myself to finally understanding that I can't do this anymore, that I need help. I have an amazing team behind me now that work with Author Assist. And this gives me peace of mind to know that it's not all on me. I'm the face of the company, but then I have my freelancers and my team behind me that make sure that Author Assist runs well and that the clients get the best that they're going to be paying for. So that's exciting, but yeah, it was a learning curve.
Sure.
I agree with Daniel. Work can sometimes put a constraint on your on your independence for sure, and on how you conduct yourself in general. But I will say this: the one thing that he has taught me that I take with me into my author persona, which really isn't that much different, folks, than my real persona, is a certain sense of professionalism that I hopefully comes across, that hopefully makes me a pleasant guest, or a pleasant convention volunteer. So I think there are lessons we can get from those constraining situations, and and in a lot of ways, constraints help build creativity as well. Finding ways for your personality. I don't know if with accounting specifically, but in technical support and operations, I've been able to allow a little bit of my personality come out, and so that's been fun.
So for me, I probably told the story a million times, so probably everybody in the chat's heard it, and probably everybody here has heard it. But my creativity got killed for a couple years. I worked in Hollywood for about 18 months and saw some things that I could never unsee, and experienced some things that I never want to experience again in my life. And in doing that, I stopped creating altogether. I just felt like, what's the point if this is where the end game goes, right? And it killed me deep inside. I was not a very good person for a good couple years, and so when that happens, it was really eye-opening to me. I kind of had to look inside, and then what ended up happening is I met with some friends from the past who I've created with before I was, going and pursuing Hollywood and doing all the things I was doing. I met with some friends that we were independently creating beforehand, and when I met with them, it was like a spark, and like we just started creating like on the fly. And how you do when you get together with people, you start coming up with ideas, and you start going, hey, we should do this, we should do that, hey, look at this, you look at things differently. Like, we can see like little ravens on a telephone pole and have a story behind that, and that kind of just eked out my individuality and my independence. And then from that point forward, I never looked back. But so I can totally relate to the work environment, tempering that and kind of, I think as we get older too, we realize, we have less fucks to give. And so, we just go with it, and just go, you know what, if a little bit of me leaks out, fuck it. It's just going to be the way it is. Right. And it's just how it goes. You with age, you get wisdom, I guess, a little bit in that respect. But Vanessa has a great question I want to present to you all. And she asked, do you ever have an issue when all that control feels like too many decisions having to be made, too much pressure? And if so, how do you deal with it?
All the time. Go ahead, Karina.
Yeah, with Author Assist, there is a lot of pressure, whether I've got the team working behind me or not. It is on me. Decisions are on me. Mistakes, then it's my fault. So there is a lot of pressure, but it's something that I've done for 15 years now. So I'm used to that. As well as I have my radio show, and once a month. I have the TV show that has to go out and be edited and go out once a week. I'm now co-host for another radio show for a client that needs to be done once a week. So I'm always going to have that pressure. I'm always going to have that stress. But it's how I work now. It's what I'm used to, and yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, so this is all fairly new to me. Basically I started this during COVID, and so was that 3 years now or so. So I'm overwhelmed all the time. I'm not by nature. I don't spend a lot of time on the internet. I don't text. I don't tweet. I don't Instagram. I don't know what else there is. So having to do all these things now has been, at one point I was, ready to just stop. But I guess what I did is I just said, okay, for me, I'm not in the same situation as Karina and others who are doing this as they're living. So I just take a step back and I say, here's my goals, and I try to meet my goals and timetables. But I've just got to the point where if I don't, I can't afford the stress to do it. My wife and I decided early on that, if I wanted to do this, I had to pay for it outside of our normal bills. So I drive Lyft to pay for it. And so it's very much a budget thing, and it gets done when it gets done. And I try to spend at least a couple hours a week, if not half an hour to an hour a day, doing something related to it. And then on Sundays, I like to write or do stuff like this, or be creative. And it's slower than it was during COVID, but I'm working a lot now.
No, yeah, I definitely get that. So by nature, I'm a bit of a control freak, and that can be good and bad, as people might imagine. And like I wrote in the chat, sometimes when, so I also became a parent later in life, when I had less energy, I guess. So there's a lot of little things, both in what I'm doing, work, this work, game design stuff, and other collaborations and home life, that do build up over time. And like I mentioned in the chat, sometimes it just kind of like when I say, "To hell with this," and dive into a computer game even though you're missing deadlines and things like that. But what's helped me maintain my equilibrium is finding ways to collaborate with others. Working on somebody else's project actually is a lot less pressure for me, especially if they are also a control freak and I can recognize that. And then I'm like, okay, this is your show, no problem. But assisting others helps me de-stress, because it lets me sort of take myself out of the situation and look at it objectively.
Nice. I so relate to this right now. Collabs scare me when I'm in that space, because I don't want someone else to rely on me being so flaky. Yeah, I was just mentioning, Vanessa, before we started, how I have to get writing because I owe somebody a story. I've owed them for a long time, and I think they're to the point where they're going to start taking fingers from me if I don't start producing. So, I feel that deep in my bones. But the idea when I got soured by creativity, right, and I punished myself for not, for something that I experienced, instead of, going a different way, right? Instead of pivoting. And I think a lot of times what I've learned over the years is that in control aspects of things, if you just take a step back, you take a deep breath and you pivot, you might find a different way to pursue it, and it might alleviate a lot of that. Because what happened when creativity came back is that I learned that it was never gone, right? It was always there. And what happens is if you take a step back, there's like this weird synopsis that flashes in your brain where you weren't thinking about it for a moment, but because it's inherent in you, because it's part of who you are, right? That synopsis snaps you and goes, "Hey, I got an idea. Take this idea and go with it," right? And so that's what happens. So, I can test that, for your example, Daniel, you're just starting with this, but I bet you there was something that snapped it, right? And something that caught fire for you, and you go, "This is the moment that I need to seize it," right? And I think that's where it changes. And I think that's you realize that it's always there. It's just sometimes you just need let it breathe, just like everything else, right? It needs to meditate as much as you do. And so I think that's what I learned most about that 2.5 years I wasn't creating was why I was so miserable is because my brain was telling me, "Hey, dummy, create, do something with your hands, do something with your mind, stop being lazy, stop, doing this pursuit." And I think that also because I went into workforce and you know did the whole tailoring my personality to the workforce and all that as well, and tempering down who I was inside. Uh, as soon as I let that out, the workforce even got better for me. So it's just like there's I think there's a lot of we put that on ourselves a lot, and it doesn't help us. But when we let it out at the right time. It's supposed to happen, right? So that's kind of how I feel about if I'm feeling too much pressure or there's I'm trying to control too much, I just take that step back and pivot and let it happen. And then people come to me and say, "Hey, I got an idea for a show. All right, let's do it." And I've learned over the years that, like Karina, that collaboration is a beautiful thing. It can be beautiful, and it could be so helpful to your mental health too, right? So I always look at that, and I always think about that. But Jessica says, "I'm always scared of people thinking I'm flaky and not reliable, especially since I'm new to the business. I feel like I'm failing my brand when I miss deadlines." Yeah, I get that too. I feel like that a lot. But the cool thing about that is, I don't know. I think we think that more than anybody else outside of us thinks that, right?
We're our own worst critic. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And some of these deadlines too, like I impose deadlines on myself, and I'm, tend to be very structured. So deadlines are a big deal. And I got to the point where I was just like, okay, I got too many projects that I've taken in, trying to do a audiobook, trying to get a second book published, trying to start a newsletter. It's just like, okay, I can't do all of this, so I'm going to prioritize, and some of these deadlines are just going to go away, and I'll pick them up once I'm done. Right now my focus is on my audiobook, so that's my focus. And then, although I also have a focus on version 1.5, which is just like 60 pages that I'm trying to get out. But yeah, so you just got to dump something. For me, I just don't have time, and my stress level gets higher and higher, and it's not healthy, and I don't think so.
Do you feel like though part of accepting that you're independent is that you're going to have many plates you're holding at one time? Do you feel like that's part of the not the allure,
Expectation.
but yeah, of the expectation. That's a great way to put it. Expectation of being independent is that you can't just pursue one thing. You have to be, juggling a few things at a time.
Yeah, and you learn and you get better at it as you go.
Mhm.
It was easy when I was just writing the book because
Yeah.
I was just writing the book.
Just writing, yeah.
Yeah,
It's so
and
funny
then
you say that because like I was looking at going to now, just randomly thinking about all the things that we've gone through and the evolution of this network and there was a time when I only did one show and I was so overwhelmed at the time I was doing that one show and I was thinking to myself, holy shit, I would, if I was doing one show, I'd be probably so bored. Just perspective, right? It's just
Yeah.
kind of that weird thing.
and what you're used to, and you get used to it, and then it's
Yeah.
not as stressful. And
Yeah, you learn to manage it, right?
yep,
So, yeah. And Vanessa says sometimes I sometimes feel like I'm flaky, but by default, I just want don't want other people to find out. I know those are brain weasels, but sometimes they're loud as AF. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, they really can be, and it's difficult. And we also live in a world which measures success in a radically different way than uh, probably what it should and what's healthy for us to. You're not a success unless they made a movie out of your story or book. You're not a success unless you're on the bestseller list, et cetera, et cetera. But those are while those are great goals. Like, yeah, I'd love to be on a New York Times bestseller list. Sure, that'd be great. But it's not my immediate next step, right? Because if you shoot too far ahead, if you try to do too much constraints or too many constraints, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. So
Yeah, it's very interesting. I watched. I watched. This didn't happen to me in his lecture when I took it, but I watched a part of Robert McKee's story lecture once. Something again I'll never unsee. But I watched him ask this guy because this one guy actually challenged him and asked him, why are you so harsh on everybody? Why is it that what have you done, right? And he goes, I've stood up here for 40 years and taught this class and taught all of you how to do what you want to do, right? That's what I've done, and that's what I decided to pursue. you know I've been where you've been, and I want to give you what I know about that time in your life, right? He goes, and he looks at the guy and he says to him, what what is your goal? What is your end goal? And the guy said, to win an Academy Award and be a recognized filmmaker in this business. And he goes, well, that's not a goal. That's a lovely thought. Your real goal is to make movies first. You have to make the movie first before you get to that point. And what those become for you is you're creating the sundae. You are looking for the cherry on top of that sundae. And you're 4 steps ahead when you should just step back and put the ice cream in the bowl first. When you do that, then all of those other things come. And I thought that was
I love that. Yeah.
I always just eat that up because that's, it's great to have those pursuits. It's great to have those goals, right? But what you realize is that when Sean put ice cream, what you realize is that when you put the ice cream in the bowl, the flavor changes. It's not the same. And as you go through this and you start to do things, then your goals change too. So you have to really look at what it is you really want to start with, right? And that is where true independence begins. Is the idea that I'm going to start with this, and we'll see where it goes.
It's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
yeah. R. Lee Emery, I think that's how you say his name, had a great statement on that, and I'm paraphrasing it. But somebody asked him, why do you yell and you're so worried about people's bunks and their shoes and their uniform and all this stuff? He goes, the military might not look like it, but we do very complicated things.
Yeah.
And you have to do the small things really well. If you can't do the small things well, you're not going to be able to do the big things at all.
Well, part of that is too.
And that's kind of what you guys were alluding to is you got to do the small things.
Yeah. Part of that too is why they do that is so that it becomes second nature to you. You're not thinking about it anymore, right? You're not thinking about making your bed. You're not thinking about, this is the way you're supposed to march. You just do it. Ultimately, it just becomes muscle memory. And in that respect, all of those things don't matter anymore because now you can go to the real pursuit, and be real alert and be real focused when you need to be real focused because you're already doing those things, whether you think you are or not. Right.
And the thing about that is when you've got that stress of having to make your bed and to do all these small things for you at that time, it's so stressful. But then when you pass on to the next step, all of that is done straight away. And you're like, well, what was I so stressed about? Because I'm doing it now as if it's nothing, click of a finger, because the next step is the stressful part.
That being said, as somebody who's experienced boot camp and been through it, it is very disconcerting the first time they get in your face and yell at you. Let me just tell you that. You check your underwear. Did I just shit myself? All right, no, good. All right, I'm good.
I was combat arms. It never got better.
Yeah, I bet. But yeah, it's a weird thing, especially if you've never experienced that before. It's like, welcome to a new experience for you.
Yeah.
But,
and to your point, I mean, they yell at you specifically to induce that stress. Yeah. And, because they can't shoot at you. But, how else do you perform and learn to react and learn to, focus on what you're doing and get it done, even in a stressful situation, unless you're put in a stressful situation.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think I brought us off on it.
No. That's perfect for this topic, for sure. You know what else is perfect for this topic? It's the Indie Connection, everybody. And the Indie Connection this week talks a little bit about rivalry and the pursuits that we have. And I don't know. I've never read this book, so I'm just guessing. But, it works out. I think it works out because the title kind of gives it away a little bit. But in that respect, here's another Indie Connection. Wonderful, great Indie Connection from the awesome C.L. Cannon. If you're a fan of Divine Rivals, we got some indie books for you this week.
Hey guys, C.O. Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. Today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. The first book I have for you is called Just Like Magic by Ellie Roth. Anwar Alexander, son of the notoriously anti-magic governor, has everything he wants in life. A good job, amazing parents, and an annoying brat of a younger sister. But when his sister Shay manifests the same kind of magic powers that get countless teenagers kicked out of their houses, Anwar has to scramble to find her a witch who can show her how to control them, and make sure their parents don't find out. Christian Lewis, the most powerful magic user in the tri-state area, doesn't know what to do with himself when the Alexander siblings ask him to teach Shay in exchange for Anwar helping Chris with a life-changing ritual. But no matter how much he hates their parents, Chris has never been able to say no to mentoring a newbie magic user from a toxic household, even though her scowling older brother infuriates him. As the long summer days grow warmer, Anwar and Chris find themselves slowly drawing closer to each other over Shay's training. Sparks fly when Shay decides that she wants to compete in the Santiago, the largest magic tournament of the year. But will the 5-day competition be the beginning of something more, or the end of everything Anwar and Chris hope for? The second book I have for you is called The Fractured Empire by Robin D. Mayle. Can two broken souls fix a world that's been shattered? Adelaide used to want things. She wanted to see the world. She wanted adventure. Then her sister died. Now all she wants is to spread the ashes in the one place they swore to go together. But like everything in her life, that trip comes at a price. Marriage to a man most women would kill to have. Just as she resigns herself to the empty future her father arranged for her, a relic from a world that shouldn't exist plunges her into chaos, putting her firmly at the mercy of the mysterious man who saved her life. Clark used to be the adopted son of the most respected general in all of the Catherine Empire. Now he's the adopted son of the biggest terrorist the world has ever seen. Or he was, anyway, before his father died and orphaned him a second time. Since then, his life has boiled down to keeping his brothers alive and clearing his father's name. If he has to work for a rebel faction to accomplish those things, then that's a price he's willing to pay. Until his latest mission for them goes very, very wrong. He's forced to choose between getting the job done and saving the life of a spoiled socialite. He's still not sure he made the right choice. With danger on every side, Adelaide and Clark have no choice but to work together to survive. If only they can avoid killing each other before their enemies have the chance. The third book I have for you is called Blade of Ash by C.F.E. Black. A cursed king, a hunted sorceress, a bond unlike any other. Red inherits a kingdom and the task of protecting his people against the mysterious source of evil at his border. But when he activates a curse that will slowly drain his life, he must turn his attention to his frustrating royal sorcerer to find a solution. Allie has been hiding from a powerful enemy her entire life. Now when the king she's sworn to protect is cursed, she knows the only way to heal him is to face the enemy she's always feared, or travel to the very seat of evil. To find a cure, they must put aside their mutual distrust and work together, relying on one another when all other hope fades. The darkness that threatens their lives becomes more complex the more they discover, and as the truth about their enemy and themselves comes to light. Red and Allie learn that there is more at stake than what they ever imagined. And the last book I have for you is called Subversive by Colleen Cowley. A wizard, an unwilling assistant, an explosive secret. In an America controlled by wizards and 100 years behind on women's rights, Beatrix Harper counts herself among the resistance, the Women's League for the Prohibition of Magic. Then Peter Blackwell, the only wizard her town has ever produced, unexpectedly returns home and presses her into his service as his assistant. Beatrice fears he wants to undermine the League. His real purpose is far more dangerous for them both. Okay, that's it for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
As always, we're very grateful to CL Cannon for doing that for us, and exercise your independence and decide to go get those books, everybody. And I just had to throw that in there. I thought that would win everybody over, but maybe not. Anyway, thanks for that, Courtney. I really appreciate it, and awesome books as usual, incredible covers as usual. And then it's not my cup of tea this genre, so I don't know that I'm going to add anything to my TBR list this week, but probably I will. Who am I kidding? That thing is longer than I can ever imagine it being, right? So I wanted to finish off our conversation today to lead into next week. And Sean, you can carry this over for us because you're going to be on next week's show as well. And the idea that we have this independence, right? We're all at this point deciding that we're going to be independent. So when you're creating and you're moving forward with this independence, how has it evolved for you? What have you learned to bring it into the next level? Is there a next level for it? Is there something that you're discovering your independence is helping you do with collaborating or managing what you're doing? Do you feel like that's part of it, or do you feel like it's just a separate thing when I'm creating, and then there's the pursuit of bringing that creation out there? Do you feel like independence helps that? Do you feel like it's part of it? How do you feel independence goes with what you're trying to present to everybody?
So I think there's a difference between being independent and being not sure the right word. I would say rebellious. I'm going to do things my way, and no one can tell me anything. And all the old, every single structure that exists is a bad thing. Because I don't think that's independence. It's codependence, really. You're relying upon your animosity with the rest of society, which admittedly is not always is different for every people. I realize that I come from a certain degree of privilege when talking about these things. However, I think independence, that next step, that you take the idea that I'm not going to be like everybody else, and then you, like many of the things we talked about, you sort of temper that, right? You sharpen it down, you make it stronger, so that you can confidently step into an independent area, into an area as someone who wears independence on their sleeve. It's difficult for me to speak in front of people as I'm doing now, but I've had to learn to do it. Not because the man made me do it. It's because this is how you teach people about the things that are important to you, like my writing, and give people a way to see who you really are. So I think independence comes from the ability, from a certain degree of self-control. And that's kind of where the next step is, realizing the moments where you need somebody's help, realizing that it's okay to ask for that help, and to trade for that help. Either, you pay someone, or you trade goods and services with them. And the ability to really confidently say, I'm an independent creator, and not have to apologize for the times when you are collaborating, or when you're not strictly independent. You're always the indie creator. It's just being able to navigate that world better. For me, that's when you've leveled up a little bit.
Creativity is a huge thing for me when it comes to being independent. But the only thing I can think of to answer that question is one of the things that Author Assist does, of course, because we do the whole publishing package for the author, we do the covers. And what I have started doing is actually designing the cover that the author wants, getting that, yes, that's what I want, and then going to the designer and getting it done to make it, with that extra spark and the extra pizzazz that it needs for a cover. So I'm able to play around with my creativity and be independent by getting that cover done for the client, getting the okay, and then going to my designer to get it completed. So again, it works as a team, but also independent side to it. And the last client that I had actually accepted the cover that I designed and said, you don't need to go and get it, pay more to get someone else to design it. I'm happy with what you've done. So that was pretty cool to have that happen, and maybe it'll happen more often now. I don't know, but again, it's the line between independence and teamwork.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about independence, creativity, we're still writing for a market. We want people to read our stuff, and I'll just speak for myself. I've had a lot of criticisms of my writing and how I write and what I've written, and I've really had to look into that and fix those problems. If I want to be marketable, if you will. But as somebody said earlier, that almost increases the creativity, because now you're in parameters, and it's a lot harder when you're just everything's wide open. But when you have a road that you can look down now you can really go fast, because you've got a direction and you've got a purpose, and what kind of the rules are for what you're doing. And I really wish I had spent the time to research and learn some of that stuff before I started writing, 300,000 words. But
I think we're all in that boat sinking together. I think hindsight is 20/20 in that respect for sure, because you could hear it, and it's funny because a lot of what we do here is we're telling young authors, and we're telling new folks, we're giving them a roadmap in a lot of respects. And the funny thing is, you can't tell people how to walk their own path. It's just, I look back at the time when somebody was trying to tell me, hey, you should do this, and I go, what the fuck do you know? I know what I'm doing. I've studied. I've looked at it. I've done the research, right? And you realize,
listen to your peers. You need to listen to your peers sometimes, Joe.
Right? You realize you're fingertip touching the research. You have no idea what you're about to get into.
Yeah.
And then you look back and go, why did I listen to that guy? That guy would have helped me, And it's just it's you have to make your own mistakes sometimes, you just have to. It's just part of the learning process, right? I mean, it's part of the pursuit of independence in a lot of ways. So I want to finish up with this question for you all. Now that you're independent, now you feel like you're on a path of independence, right? Or that you've been pursuing it for a while. Do you ever look back and go, I can't ever go back? Is it you'll never go back? This is the path you found where you're walking, and you're comfortable with that. Do you all feel that way?
I have the best of both worlds with business, and with my books, I am signed with a small press, hybrid, and independent. So again, I have the best of both worlds. If a top 5 publisher said, I would like to republish your book, I would say thanks, but no thanks. But then I would find an agent and say, guess what? I'm looking for an agent because this publisher is really interested in publishing my book. So if I have an agent, then I can move on to that next step rather than sign with a publisher that I don't want to do. So, I'm quite happy where I am, and what happens, que sera, sera, and we'll see what happens.
I think, in the words of my favorite British spy, regrets are unprofessional. So I don't have any regrets. I could have done some things better, different, but I feel like I'm headed in the right direction. And so going forward, I feel like I've experienced this space where I can confidently talk to future collaborators, whether they be publishers or fellow indie authors, and say, look, I've been here. This is my experience. And this is the space that I'm going to inhabit. Much like Karina says, maybe the way to put it is, it gives me the ability to say no. I'm not desperately needing any particular situation. I can say no to things that are not good for me.
And I probably don't have to worry about it. So it's not a huge issue for me, but I will say that going the independent route has been so enriching, as far as the people, working with the people, choosing the people, and learning more about myself and my writing, and things I'm doing wrong and things I'm doing right. And I wish I'd listened to some people early on, where I didn't think what they were saying was as important as it turned out to be. But as Sean kind of alluded to, I've made my own mistakes. They're mine. I can own up to them and understand them. But yeah, I don't know what I'd do if I ever got an offer from a traditional publisher, but right now it's not a huge threat, so I'm gonna stay indie.
I will say this: if anybody ever comes up to you, if you write a screenplay or you have a book that they want to turn into a movie, and somebody comes up to you and goes, "Give it to me. Next year you'll win the Academy Award." Run as far away as you can from that human being, and never look back. That person is a snake. Yeah, because you don't pursue that to win an Academy Award. Academy Award is given to you for the work you put in to get to that point. And anybody who tells you that, they're just they're piranhas. They're just trying. So I think it works, especially in the book publishing industry too. Hey, you want to be You want to be a USA Today bestseller? Come with me. We'll do that. Run away from that person as fast as you possibly can, unless you already know them and they are. That's their goal, is trying to pursue that. I mean, there are some folks with anthologies that that's their goal, is to become. We're going to work together, but we're going to work together to get there. That's the difference, right? It's not, I'm just give it to me and I'm going to take you there. If anybody tells you that, run away as fast as you can. If you ever listen to any advice they give you, that's the one thing I will say to you. Don't empty promises are exactly that, empty promises. I guarantee it. I guarantee that person is a snake. I have not met one that can say that with confidence and do what they say they can do. Vanessa says that saying no is so important in all aspects of life, and I think that's a good mic drop for today. So thanks to everybody here for being a part of what we're doing, and we're going to be pursuing this topic again next week with a lot of the folks in the chat that are here, and a lot of people who and one person in particular who's going to be on both shows. But let's go around the horn and tell everybody where they can find you. And so we'll start with you, Daniel. So tell everybody where they can get Alejandro Rising and all those wonderful things.
Oh, Amazon, B. Dalton, some local bookstores in Minneapolis are carrying it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's very cool. And then also Wyvern's Airy, if you want signed merchandise, that's the best place to go for that.
Awesome. All right, Karina, tell everybody the millions and millions of things you're doing that you haven't said no to.
Yes, exactly. You can go over to explosivewriter.com to see about all my books, where you can get them. Some are on Amazon, some are not. So thanks for the support on that. Any authors out there or want to be authors can contact me, Author Assist by kk.com. Check out the website. It's just relaunched. It's fantastic. Author Assist does not promise anything it cannot deliver, and you're always in good hands with Author Assist. So check me out there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, you were not included in that statement. If Karina comes up to you and says she can do something for you, believe Karina can do something for you.
Thank you.
I took that leap of faith, and she's been wonderful. So I'm very excited about that. All right, Sean, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
You can find my social media and my blog and links to my books. I just put at thewickedvoice.com. I just put out my first collection of short stories called The Language of Skeptics. And I think you'll like it. It's speculative fiction. It goes in a couple different directions. Something for everybody. You'll enjoy it. You also find me at The Writing Tribe on Facebook. I'm the co-moderator for that group. We're really expanding. We're a lot of the same vibes you're getting from Going You Now transfer to The Writing Tribe as well. You should follow me on Instagram because I have a lot of cat pics on that. A lot of cats.
Those are important on Instagram. At least I've been told that. And I'm Joe Compton. You're at Going You Now. Thank you so much for TWT. Everybody, go check it out. The Writing Tribe's awesome. And you've found Go Indie Now. Congratulations. This is your first time here. Smash the like button, subscribe, do all those wonderful things we love doing. Love you doing, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. And like I said, next week, join us for the continuation of this conversation. We're going to go a little bit further into the conversation. And you don't have to hear that from me. You can hear it from the person who's going to close our show today.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our special 2-week episode. Don't forget to come back next week at the same time as we continue on with this discussion and take a look at how we grow as independents. You'll be joining me, Madilynn Dell, your host for This Week in Indies, because it's always time to go indie now.